Good morning. It's good to be with you today. The strength of enthusiasm. I like to read and think about the quotations that important and sometimes intelligent and at times humorous people have to say. Such as, success is a marathon. It's not a 100-yard dash. Another one, good listeners are popular and welcome everywhere. And after a while, they know something. We've all heard of Pandora's box, but one humorist said, Pandora also has a rule. Never open a box you didn't close. Another one that has to do with the topic this morning, you can do anything if you have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is at the bottom of all progress. With it, there is accomplishment. Without it, there are excuses and alibis. Now, is this going to work for me? I push the green button, do I? Oh, it helps when you turn it on. Well, there we go. As they say, the Greeks had a word for it. They called it enthusiasmos, roughly meaning possessed by a god. We have blandly defined it as a feeling of strong excitement or eagerness. The notion that enthusiasm is divinely inspired might be somewhat misleading, and I do not want to imply that God bestows enthusiasm on others and a few chosen and leaves some out. No. Enthusiasm, if it is confined to a chosen few, it's because they work at keeping it alive while others do not. And the secret of keeping it alive seems to lie most closely related to service to others. If you observe the most enthusiastic people in the world, the wellspring of their enthusiasm seems to be the fullest when they're helping others, and not just helping themselves. This is particularly true when our activities have to do with young people. I enjoyed my years on the university campus because I always interfaced with youth, and they kept me from thinking like an old man. When they got to be 23 or 24, you graduated them and sent them on, and you always had a fresh bunch of 18-year-olds to look at. In the eyes of the enthusiast, obstacles and pitfalls look small. Opportunities look enormous. And if we're going to overcome the problems and difficulties we face at home, in our society, in our church at large, we first must believe that we're able to do so. Enthusiasm will give us the confidence to move forward while others stand still. We are told that confidence is a plant of slow growth, and it withers easily in an environment of skepticism, cynicism, and it comes in several different varieties, the hardiest of which is a cross between hope and faith. Story is told of a man who pushed a hot dog cart on the streets of New York for many years, always shouting, "Buy a hot dog, mister. These are the best hot dogs in the world." And he sold hot dogs because he shouted with great enthusiasm, "Buy a hot dog, mister. These are the best hot dogs in the world." And he had a good business. And he raised his son, sent his son off to university. His son came home with a degree in business and said, "You know, Dad, the stock market's in a slump. The economy is not as good as it was. And business is kind of slow." And the man who pushed the hot dog cart with less enthusiasm and less energy and less confidence began to say, "Buy a hot dog, mister. Would you buy a hot dog, mister?" And he came home one night and he said, "You know, my son is right. There is a lack of confidence. There is a lack of business." When all he had to do was shout with the original enthusiasm, "Buy a hot dog, mister. These are the best hot dogs in the world." And when he did so, his business improved and things went back to as they were before. If we're not confident about the present, it's hard to be confident and enthusiastic about the future. It's hard to be enthusiastic if we lack confidence. As you listen to those about you as they speak of the church, its theology, its leadership, its programs, sometimes people question what there is to be confident about. Our church, its institutions, have gone through different crises. We've had financial crisis. We've had leadership crisis. We have had enrollment crisis. And sometimes this has led to a crisis of our own confidence. A crisis of confidence is an expression that has a suitably heavy ring to it. It's both resounding and vague. It prevents us from pulling ourselves out of the present slump we find ourselves in. The Oxford Dictionary has no less than 7 definitions of confidence. Three of which have a direct bearing on why we are here and why we come to church each week, why we are Seventh-day Adventists, and why we should be confident Christians. Now, the first definition says it is a mental attitude of trusting a person or a thing. To adapt this situation to our church, let us say that the persons are our church leaders, our conference president, our union president, our general conference president. And the things could be our institutions, our schools, our universities, our hospitals. There are times when people and things let us down, and we have a loss of confidence. There was times when the church has trusted confidence in its leadership, but we no longer live in perhaps the most trusting age. When you turn your TV on and listen to the news, there can be a lack of confidence, a lack of enthusiasm. Relentless skepticism has not come to be reflected in our attitudes, and we need to pass on a different message than at times goes out. Cynicism has not gained total control of us, but has made some inroads that affect our confidence. And this has a significant impact on the spiritual lives and the ultimate confidence we express towards one another, our families, and within the church. Now, the second definition from the Oxford Dictionary is a feeling of sure fact on the issue of assurance through a written guarantee of expectation. Now, we buy products, and in the box that comes with the appliance is a written guarantee. Have you ever bought something and had it break down in a few months and take it back and with the guarantee and find out that the people who made it are no longer in business and the guarantee isn't worth the paper it's written on? So we can't always depend on the issue assurance of a written guarantee of expectation. With so much gloom in the air that we hear on the news today, it's hard to be enthusiastic and positive. We need reassurance. In Proverbs 3:26, we read, "The Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being snared." We have here a written guarantee of assurance. From time to time, it's easy to express doubts about what we're doing for the short term. But we can express certainty about the future. If our faith is intact, we can know sure things do exist. But the third definition I found in the Oxford Dictionary, so one that comes a little closer to what I want to say today. Assurance, boldness, fearlessness, arising from reliance on oneself, on what we know, on circumstances, and the important point, on divine support. Now notice the difference between this definition and the first two. The first two, we were basing our enthusiasm, our confidence, on persons and things, and we're often let down. The second, on a written guarantee, only as good as the person or the company who stands behind it. But the third one brings in the concept of divine support. Enthusiasm and confidence in who we are and what we are based on divine support. We need to stop and look back periodically and learn from those who have come before us. These pioneers who built this church, who built our institutions, had an abundance of confidence and enthusiasm. In spite of the wilderness, in spite of the harsh climate, in spite of loneliness, financial difficulty, our pioneers established churches, built missions, constructed hospitals, schools, universities, their faith and hope came together to build a triumph of confidence. An example of this kind of confidence can be seen in the educational work of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In 1997, this church operated 52 colleges and universities around the world. Today, that number exceeds 130. And that's just education. That's not churches, that's not hospitals, but just colleges and universities. We have grown with our enthusiasm and our confidence from 52 to 130 in just a few short years. In the long run, this church and its institutions have more than repaid the faith, the hope, which generations have poured into them. And I am confident that it will continue to do so as long as we put forth the effort, that effort being faith, hope, and a little energetic action called enthusiasm. As long as the members of our church and our constituencies see us as examples of those who speak and write and act positively, as long as people around us see us as persons who are possessed by God, we will not need to question our confidence and our enthusiasm in the church, in its institutions, in our own faith, and in our own eternity. May God help us show enthusiasm as we work in our offices, as we spend time with our families, as we travel abroad or at home, as we witness in our church and in our communities. May everyone see us as people who are enthusiastic Christians, people who possess that enthusiasmus, people who are in fact possessed by God. I believe we have a closing hymn.